In the summer of 2021, Inter Milan were in trouble. Days after lifting their first Serie A title in 11 years, Antonio Conte walked out. Not because he wanted to, but because the side he built was about to be torn apart.
He was very unhappy about the fact that the owners of the club had asked him, just a few days after winning the Italian title for the first time in 11 years, to cut costs. They wanted him to shave about 100 million euros off Inter's budget for next season. And Antonio Conte was very, very unhappy about that. He basically said, look, I've won the title. I did what you asked me to do. But when it comes to Europe, we finished bottom of our Champions League group. Next season, I want to win the title again, but I want to win the European Cup. I want to make us a force in Europe again as well. And I will not be able to do that if you're asking me to sell some of my best players, to cut my wage bill. I cannot do that. I cannot manage with one hand tied behind my back. And that is why he has decided to go.
Instead of backing, the owners pushed for brutal financial cuts. Their two best players, Lukaku and Hakimi, were sold off to the highest bidders, and with over 700 million euros in debt, the message to players was simple: take a pay cut or watch this club collapse. By the time Simone Inzaghi took over as manager, most fans braced for collapse. He wasn't a world-class coach, not even close. No league titles, no Champions League pedigree, just a quiet exit from Lazio and a reputation for playing it safe. He was only supposed to be a yes man. But 3 years later, Inter aren't just surviving, they're terrified. 2 Champions League finals in 3 years. Scudetto winners, a squad built on free transfers, aging legs, and tactical brilliance, tearing apart clubs with 10 times their budget. So how did it happen? How did a so-called nobody turn a broken Inter into Europe's most efficient team? This is the story of how Inzaghi's Inter Milan broke European football. When Inzaghi arrived, he inherited a time bomb. The core of the team was gone. Nobody knew if they'd still be wearing the same shirts next season, if there was a next season. The whole place carried this quiet feeling that the good days were already gone and they weren't coming back. The mood around the club was flat. Inzaghi wasn't brought in to win, he was brought in to survive, to stabilize a crumbling institution. But instead of patching holes, he quietly rewired the system. In his first season, Inzaghi didn't tear it all down. Instead, Il Demone di Piacenza, aka the Demon of Piacenza, known for his sharp tactical instincts and expressive coaching, kept Conte's sacred 3-5-2 formation, but gave it a new soul. No more rigid, grinded-out football. Inzaghi's Inter flowed. Wingbacks pushed high, Bastoni surged forward like a playmaker, possession turned into pressure, defensive structure transformed into attacking waves. And the results? Second in Serie A with a league-best 84 goals scored. Supercoppa Italiana champions, with a last-minute winner against Juventus. Coppa Italia champions, outlasting Juve in a chaotic 4-2 final in Rome. And in Europe, they went to war with Liverpool. Losing on aggregate, yes, but winning the second leg at Anfield. Not bad for a coach who was supposed to keep the ship afloat. It wasn't a revolution, not yet, but it was the start of something dangerous. Inzaghi had rebuilt the system. The war wasn't over. Inter was still breeding money. While clubs like Manchester City and Real Madrid spent hundreds of millions, Inzaghi was forced to bargain shop. Free transfers, loan deals, aging legs. That was the budget. His second season, it didn't start like a fairy tale. Napoli stormed to the Serie A title with relentless form. Inter's league campaign was shaky. Edin Dzeko looked his age. Lukaku returned, but so did his injuries and inconsistency. And Brozovic, the midfield engine, was sidelined for key games. There were whispers. Maybe Inzaghi's magic had run out. Maybe Inter had hit their ceiling. But behind the scenes, he was building something deeper. Instead of chasing stability, Inzaghi doubled down on rotation, not out of desperation, but by design. He created a system where every role mattered, and no one, not even Lautaro, was untouchable. 2 players defined this evolution. Mkhitaryan, once dismissed as past it, became vital. No longer had the legs, but still had the brain. And Onana, a free signing from Ajax, became a revelation, a midfielder with his feet. a wall with his hands. Despite all the setbacks, Inter lifted the Supercoppa, then the Coppa Italia. But the real story was in Europe. Drawn into a group with Bayern and Barcelona, they survived, then edged out Porto, outclassed Benfica, and in the semis, they destroyed bitter rivals AC Milan 3-0 on aggregate. It wasn't close. Inter were smarter, deadlier, better, and just like that, Inter were back in the Champions League final for the first time in 13 years. Their opponent, Pep Guardiola's treble-chasing Manchester City. Everyone predicted a bloodbath, but Inter didn't fall. They stood tall, and in the end, it took just one goal to separate them. They lost 1-0. But it didn't feel like defeat. Inter weren't underdogs anymore. They didn't just survive the storm. They proved they belong among Europe's elite. Most top 10 teams today swear by the same playbook. 4-3-3 and 4-2-3-1 positional play. Predictable shapes, predetermined zones. But Inzaghi didn't care. He doubled down on the outdated 3-5-2, a formation most modern tacticians avoid. Too rigid, too exposed, too old school. And yet, Inzaghi made it terrifying. He used centre-backs as playmakers, wing-backs not as runners, but as unpredictable disruptors. And his midfield? It wasn't just a trio. It was a rotating hive mind. This wasn't positional play. This was positional anarchy. His team didn't occupy fixed zones. They occupied space wherever it appeared. Whether it was DeMarco showing up in central midfield, Mkhitaryan dropping into the backline, or Bastoni charging into the final third, Inter flowed like water. And the deeper you look, the more revolutionary it became. Every player could defend. Every player could attack. They became universal players, moving in a coordinated chaos to confuse and crush opponents. Inzaghi wasn't just sticking to the system. He was reprogramming it, leading a quiet revolution in football. The center-backs, Bastoni and Acerbi, weren't just defending. They were dictating tempo, building play, overlapping, breaking lines. DeMarco became a flying weapon down the left, sometimes hugging the touchline, sometimes drifting into the midfield. On the right, Dumfries pinned back entire defensive lines with his runs. And in the midfield, Çalhanoğlu, reborn as a deep-lying orchestrator, controlled everything. Henrik Mkhitaryan, well into his 30s, dropped deep, floating wide, filled space like a veteran chess master. Barella ran himself into the ground, pressing, linking, destroying. And up front, Lautaro Martinez evolved into a complete forward, dropping deep, spinning behind, finishing cold. Beside him, Marcus Thuram, the final piece of the puzzle. A dynamic, selfless forward who thrived in Inzaghi's chaos. He didn't just score important goals, he created space, linked play, and broke lines with power and speed. What looked like an outdated rigid formation became a blueprint for controlled chaos. Other systems need stars to succeed. Inzaghi's system makes stars. It's not just tactics, it's evolution. Heading into his third season, Inzaghi had proven himself, but Inter still had no money, no new stadium, no elite signings, and their biggest enemy, consistency. No one expected Inter to dominate. Not with Milan strengthening, not with Juventus returning, not with Napoli still riding high. But Inzaghi had turned Inter into a machine. In Serie A, they didn't just win, they steamrolled. By April, they had the title wrapped, and on April 22nd, 2024, Inter sealed their Scudetto with a 2-1 win in the Milan Derby, their fiercest rival, watching as they were crowned kings. That win was poetic, but the season was surgical. Clean sheets, pressing, late goals, squad unity, no distractions, no drama. And to top it off, Inzaghi placed third in FIFA's best men's coach, behind only Guardiola and Spalletti. He extended his contract through 2025. He didn't just rebuild Inter, he rebuilt their reputation. For years, Lautaro Martinez was the second name on the team sheet. Behind Lukaku, behind Messi, behind the spotlight. Some said he lacked the killer instinct. Others called him inconsistent. But under Inzaghi, he became undeniable. He was handed the captain's armband, and in return, he delivered over 100 goal contributions in 3 seasons, won the Serie A Golden Boot, and became the first Inter striker in a decade to consistently dominate Europe's biggest nights. He wasn't just leading the line, he was leading the club. Lautaro didn't need a bigger team, he just needed the right coach. By now, Inter weren't underdogs, they were the benchmark. But the 2024-25 season pushed them to the edge. Napoli, reborn under Conte, matched them stride for stride. Every week felt like a final. Every mistake threatened to ruin everything. Inter held firm, the league's best defense, a relentless attack, and nerves of steel. It went down to the wire, and Inter didn't blink. But not every battle was theirs to win. In the Coppa Italia, Inter faced Milan in a heated derby. They were favorites, but derbies ignore form. Milan sat deep, waited, struck 3 times, and Inter's dream collapsed. But failure didn't break them. It sharpened their focus for what truly mattered. If Serie A was a grind, the Champions League was a gladiator arena. In the round of 16, they faced a new Bayern Munich, led by Vincent Kompany, who played a brave, modern, risky style of football. But against Inzaghi's chessboard, Kompany's side got suffocated. Tactically, it was a masterclass. Press resistance, wing-back overloads, Bastoni and Calhanoglu pulling Bayern apart like puzzle discs. Inter advanced, cool, calculated, and merciless. Then came the semi-finals, the most hyped Barcelona team in years. Hansi Flick's young empire, Lamine Yamal, Rafinha, Pedri, fluid, fast, fearless. Inter, they absorbed the storm. They played their game. The first leg was classic Inzaghi ball. Grit, set-piece brilliance, tactical patience. Dumfries bombed down the flanks like a man possessed. 5 goal involvements, 3 assists, and 2 goals. Over the 2 legs, Barcelona couldn't pin him down, but the second leg, that was war. Barca struck late. Rafinha in the 87th minute. Inter was going out, but then a centre-back in the box. In the 90th minute, Acerbi, the veteran, charged through the chaos. He had no right to be there, but through sheer grit, determination, and belief, he scored. It went to extra time, and Inzaghi, true to his philosophy, used every tool at his disposal. He took off Lautaro, trusted his bench. De Vrij, written off by many, came on and defended like his life depended on it. Fratesi, the usual super sub, scored the winner. And in goal, Jan Zoll, an average keeper who signed from Bayern after being a stopgap solution when Neuer was injured. Never a superstar, but this night he was a war. Man of the match. Inter won 7-6 on aggregate. They endured Yamal, outclassed Rafinha, defined the hype. They didn't win by luck. They won because they knew who they were and never changed. This was their second Champions League final 3 years, and for many, it was their last chance. From chaos to control, from broken to bulletproof. In just 4 seasons, Simone Inzaghi didn't just save Inter Milan, he redefined no Galacticos, no multi-million euro transfer windows, just belief, balance, and brilliance. They weren't built to dominate, but they did it anyway. This wasn't a fairy tale. This was a revolution, and Inter Milan, they became the future. Not by rewriting the rule, but by throwing out the rulebook altogether.